For the past 4 or 5 years, there's been a really heavy obsession in the gaming industry with zombies. We've seen zombie games cover a large variety of different genres. We've had single-player games that focus on storytelling and overcoming adversity. We've had co-op games where players just take on hordes of never-ending zombies, and we've even had full-blown MMOs, which are basically just the same thing as the co-op games on a grander scale, but also having players dick each other over. The problem is, we've just had so many of these zombie games that it's getting to the point where once you've played 1 or 2 of them, you've basically played them all, because there's so many common shared mechanics that they all like to use because they're familiar and tropey. Now, despite this fact, there are still quite a few of them getting released, and on occasion there is still going to be those 1 or 2 titles that look really promising, either because they do something different or because they do the formula that much better. And that's what brings us to Dying Light. What's up, Internet? Kevin here, and as I said, zombie games have a really bad habit of having very, very similar mechanics, and Dying Light is no exception to that. But what it does do to help itself stand out a little more is by mixing in a few other genres and doing the basic formula that much better. Now, if you've played a lot of other zombie titles, there's going to be one game in particular that comes to mind when you're looking at Dying Light, and that's Dead Island, which in my opinion, Dying Light is basically just a better version of that same kind of game, mostly thanks to its parkour mechanics and way smoother combat, as well as a couple other little changes that we're going to talk about in a bit here. So before we get into the multiplayer aspects of the game, let's talk about the core mechanics. Now, the main game is done through a campaign mode where you have to complete a number of storyline missions, but more importantly, most of your time is going to be spent in the game's free roam, which can be really summed up in 2 different ways: parkour and beating the crap out of zombies. Now, one thing Dying Light does interesting is that there are skill trees that are associated with all your different agility tricks or combat abilities, but they all grow individually and separately. You don't just level up and put a point whatever you want to specialize in. Instead, you get better at parkour by doing parkour, and you get more combat abilities by just beating up zombies as often as you can, unlocking different useful combat techniques like the all-powerful dropkick, which is honestly where 90% of the fun in this game comes from. Just watching zombies go flying by dropkicking them into spikes, traps, or other players to beat the crap out of. Now, there are 2 other parts of the core gameplay behind Dying Light that I really like: the day and night cycles and the crafting system. Day and night cycles aren't anything new to zombie games, we've seen them a lot, but usually the main idea is that at nighttime, zombies just get more aggressive and that's about it. Dying Light does something a little different. There are unique super-powered zombies that only show up at nighttime that are not only really hard to kill, but are also really fast and are really good at tracking you, which makes nighttime a much more dangerous time to play, but the game also entices you to want to play at the time by giving you double experience during it. So while you could play it safe by just playing during daytime and sleeping throughout the night, you're gonna level up a lot faster by taking those risks and playing at nighttime. As for the crafting system, the one thing I really like is the fact that no item is permanent. All weapons can be repaired, but only so many times before they permanently break. So as a result, you're gonna constantly have to switch what weapons you're using and constantly craft more of them and upgrade them to get the most use out of them. See, in other games, you might have that situation where you can make one ultimate weapon and just keep using it until you can make an even better one. In this, though, you're gonna make one awesome weapon, use it a few times, and then have to make another one all over again. So it makes resource management and switching between weapons more often more important. There is one awkward side of the crafting though, and that's scrap metal, which is the main resource in the game. It shows up literally everywhere. Every other zombie you search, every trash can pile you look through, you're going to find scrap metal. At the very start of the game, you might be worried about it and go, oh hey, maybe I should switch between more weapons or try to conserve it. No. After an hour, you're going to end up with 60 pieces of scrap metal you have no idea what to do with, which as a mechanic just makes it seem really unimportant. They either should have made scrap metal a lot more harder to come by, or they should have just removed it entirely so you could focus on the other resources for crafting new weapons or upgrades. So overall, I really like the core gameplay behind Dying Light. I think they did an excellent job of balancing how character creation and customization works, switching between items, and most importantly, I really like the way zombies were handled in this game. A lot of more recent zombie games tend to have an emphasis where there's a ton of zombies, but individually they're super weak, and your biggest obstacle is just getting tired from fighting so many. In older horror games, there'd be the situation where there's just 1 or 2 zombies, but they're really freaking tough and take forever to die. Dying Light, on the other hand, hits a really nice sweet spot for me. There's just enough zombies to where they're a threat in a group, and while one by itself can get beaten down, it still takes a little bit of time. There are, of course, also special zombies like ones that explode or spit acid or just really big heavy tanks, but as far as the regular zombies go, I think they just did a great job of capturing that right balance between either not a threat at all by just walking and stumbling around, around, or a major threat if you piss them off and fight too many at once. Now, all that being said, there are some other parts of the core gameplay that I'm not as big of a fan of, mostly in the storytelling and missions department. It's all just very dry, very tropey, and all stuff that we've seen a million times before. The main story missions do have some interesting climactic moments during the middle segment of the game, but for the most part, they're just really uninteresting. It really got to the point where I had a lot more fun just doing random free roam rather than trying to complete the game's story, and the only reason I even tried to was because I wanted to get more experience to develop the survivor tree. So if you're looking for plot, this isn't going to be one of the better zombie games to look for, but thankfully, if you just want to focus on a game that lets you beat up zombies with friends, well, this fact is going to be a little less important. And that is, once again, where the game starts to get its strength again, is through its co-op mode and multiplayer options. Co-op in this game is really simple. You can just join other players' games or invite them to yours to work together to complete the story missions or just run around in free roam. One thing they did to spice up co-op, though, that I really appreciate is the co-op competitions. Basically, while you're playing the game in the cooperative mode, every now and then the game will give you the option to start a competition with your friends, most of which will normally revolve around where you are currently in the world or what missions you're currently trying to complete. For instance, one of the early on missions is to try and grab a supply drop. Well, once you get within range of it, you can start a competition to see which player reaches the supply drop first. The one that wins gets free bonus XP, either for agility or combat. What's great about this is that it mixes up the cooperative mode while never actually interrupting the main gameplay. All of these competitions are going to tie into things you were already doing anyways, but now throws in a way to compete with your friends and get a little bonus XP to top it off. Which, by the way, reminds me, if you grab this game on PC, make sure to change the default controls a little bit, because it was clearly designed for console in the first place, and there's a few key bindings that are redundant and really annoying. The main one being that the button for starting or joining a competition is the same button for using a med kit, so if your friend challenges you to a competition and you're missing just a little bit of health, you'll end up wasting a med kit, which is really, really annoying. But thankfully, you can change that. Just go into the options, make sure you do that right away. Now, there's one last gameplay mode of Dying Light I haven't talked about yet, and it's the one that I think really does the best job of making it stand out as a little more unique than other zombie games, and that's the Be the Zombie mode, which is a multiplayer competitive mode which entails two of my favorite things: asymmetric multiplayer and invasions a la Dark Souls. Now, if you don't know what it means, asymmetric multiplayer is when you have a multiplayer mode where the two sides aren't playing by the same set of rules. In this case, you have up to 4 human players working together to try and destroy nests, while you have a zombie player trying to hunt down and kill them all a certain number of times. What's great about this is that if you've been playing the campaign a lot and you're getting bored of just being a regular old human, you can take a break and turn into a superpowered zombie, giving the ability to do things like fly through the air with web slinging, or instantly kill humans by sneaking up on them with a long-range grapple. The reason why I like the invasion aspect, though, is because while playing as a human, the multiplayer mode is all wrapped together in one nice package. You never have to try and go into a side lobby, you never have to try and take a break from the game and do something else. You can just keep playing campaign, have invasions turned on, and enter that mode whenever someone wants to try and fight you. And if you're not interested in invasions, if you just want to play it as a cooperative or just single-player game, there is the option to just turn it off and never have to deal with it. Now, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of zombie games. I'm personally just really tired of the genre. There's been a lot of games that have come out back to back, but Dying Light is one of the few titles I've actually really enjoyed, mainly because I really like the way the game tied the campaign, co-op, and competitive multiplayer all into one nice little package. As I said, the story itself is nothing special, and honestly, if you're looking for a more plot-heavy game, this isn't going to be one of the ones for you. But if you just want the chance to beat up a bunch of zombies with friends, this is one of the best options out there, especially with the competitive aspects added in with that Be the Zombie mode. Now, the game does have a couple other little flaws worth mentioning. First off, I really don't like the fact that there's no stamina meter for running. You just have to go off of whether or not your character is breathing really heavily, and the game does have its share of bugs. Nothing that absolutely breaks the game, but on occasion some really weird shit can happen. Now, is it worth paying a full $60 for? Well, that depends. If you can grab friends to play it right now in co-op, then it's worth it. But if you're just gonna end up doing it by yourself and just dabble in the Be the Zombie mode on occasion, it's much more worth waiting then for a little while for a price drop or two. Well, that was my review of Dying Light. If you guys want to grab a copy of the game for yourselves, I do have a link posted down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button to let me know. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do that too so you don't miss out on any future content. And until then, I'm Kevin Kenson, and I'll see you guys later.